Sex, drugs, violence. This is my short film, a creation by me, Paris Edwin John Ferguson. Now, who am I making this short film for? I'm making it for Raindance. Now, why am I doing this? Well, it contains sex, drugs and violence, which does mean swearing, potential nudity and the explicit use of drugs, which I discussed and agreed was fine with my college teachers. Raindance gives me the most freedom, as it has, the only restrictions it has on short films is that it needs to be under 25 minutes and I need to get it in by latest the 31st of May, which I believe I can achieve. What is my project though? My project is presenting the struggles and issues that young men face in society. Why do I think I suit this though? Well, because I'm a young man. These are my struggles, just presented in a more extreme manner. I'm also good with metaphors and symbolism, colour schemes, use of props, use of music, and I have experience with using sex, drugs and violence in my productions before. This is just the culmination of all that put together. I'm evaluating myself with weekly blogs and asking teachers for assistance and reacting to their feedback. When I sent out a survey for which of my productions I should do, 50% voted for sex, drugs and violence. 25% wanted me to do a music video compilation. It was also about the struggles of one young man and would have been one music video followed on by another with short film bits in between linking them. The third one was an art piece that got 25% of the votes called Being a Man. It was going to be me, more or less in a dark room, talking and discussing the themes of being a young man and the struggles that we face. So what is sex, drugs and violence? Well, it's a short film about a male prostitute, a drug addict, and an abused young man who together power through their own issues with the help of others and themselves, coming against individual struggles. My final deadline that I need to get this in for is the 10th of May. But it wasn't always like this. Originally, the theme of the production was friendship rather than individual struggle. Drugs was a drug addict, a carer of the group, and when the group eventually breaks apart in the climax of the original idea, he overdoses and dies. Sex was a sex addict rather than a prostitute, and slept with Violence's girlfriend, causing the breakup of the group. Violence was a man with severe anger issues, who pushed people away due to these issues and eventually forgives sex at Drugs' funeral. However, due to feedback from teachers, I adapted this idea to focus more on the themes of individual struggle. Now, Drugs is a wealthy drug addict with an absentee father and an uncaring mother, which causes him to take drugs and be extremely sensitive around his friends, still serving as the carer of the group. Sex has no family or financial support, so his prostitution is unwilling. He's no longer in it for the sex, but as a means to survive. He's also abused by his customers. Violence, his anger issues come from his own abuse at home, as his father is physically abusive and his boss at work is mentally abusive. How did I get these ideas though? Well, I decided violence should be abused to justify his anger issues due to children of abuse being 38% more likely to be arrested for a violent crime themselves. And sex, being an unwilling prostitute, is because out of 20,000 male sex workers around the UK, most use their occupation as a means to survive rather than a choice. In this focus group, which I cannot show you due to it constantly causing my pitch to crash, Owen brings up the idea of colour themes, which I will discuss in the next slide. The rest of the group, Finn in particular however, also discussed how I was being very ambitious, focusing on 3 characters and 3 individual narratives. However, I believe that with myself being on top of the actors and planning that I have been, I should be able to get all this done in time. Now about those colours. Why am I doing colours? Well, I want to give an individual colour theme to each character. For identification, it's easy to notice Violence if he's always in red. For characterisation, why is he red? Well, red is the colour of violence, of passion, of anger. It's also unique. I've seen people use fashion themes with different characters in their production, but I've never seen people use colour themes to my recollection. It also fits my genre of slightly heightened realism and drama. as it's not realistic for people to wear just one colour, but it is interesting, and I'm hoping it will engage the audience more than usual. Speaking of my genre is drama. 60% of my survey participants thought that it should be this, so did I. The conventions of genre I'll briefly take you through and I'll be using are realism, relatable characters, and tension. The tension comes from each character having opposites that are more powerful than on screen. Violence is abused by his father and his boss, which he can't really do anything about in the beginning of the film, therefore creating tension in his scenes. Drugs serve as his tension, as you never know when one's going to take him or if he's ever going to break his habit. And as for sex, the customers that pay for him are his tension, as they can pretty much do whatever they like, as he has no security or place to be safe. When analysing other productions in this genre, I came across a film about a drug addict called David, and a film about two World War II pilots having a dogfight called Paths of Hate. Paths of Hate used red a lot, had quite a bland colour scheme of whites, greys and blacks, but red always stood out when there was blood on screen or when violence was happening. This reinforced my idea of using colours for each individual character. Also at points of tension, Paths of Hate would cut the sound so you could only hear the music, which was tense, and see the particularly tense action. This always made me re-engage with the production whenever my attention was drifting off. So I found it highly effective and will probably be using it in my own scenes of tension. For David, the most standout thing that I liked was its use of lighting. When David was on drugs, he was in a dark room, but when he was off drugs, the lighting was always bright and clear. I chose to use it in my own production, using bright colours for when drugs is on drugs, and dark colours for when he's sober, and then reversing that once he recovers from his habit. I also had test shoots. In my light test shoot, the light was too bright, but also didn't glow at me. I wanted to use this for when drugs is on drugs. Whenever he's on drugs, I wanted the world to shine at him, like it was all beautiful. But I couldn't find a way of doing that currently, so I will be having to go back to this. For my dark test shoots, there wasn't enough contrast between the light and the dark, and things weren't massively clear as to his facial expression or minute movements that I would want the characters to present. So I'll also have to be going back and understanding dark lighting more. My narrative is going to be linear. It's what 66.6% of my survey participants voted for, and it's the easiest to follow. I chose that one. My narrative, rather than bringing you through Todorov's narrative, I'll tell you how my production relates to it. During the equilibrium, violence is abused, drugs is abusing his drug habit, and sex is being abused by his customers. The disrupting event is actually a positive rather than a negative, which breaks from Todorov's theory, as usually it's a negative brought in by the villain. But in this case, a boxing coach teaches violence to channel his anger into something more productive, and individual girlfriends for sex and drugs try to take them away from their own personal struggles, getting drugs off drugs, and trying to supply sex with his own job. However, sex is too proud to take it. The quest that they go on is trying to improve themselves, with sex trying to see customers less and the girl more, drugs trying to cut down on his habit, and violence no longer taking his anger out on passers-by. The climax occurs when drugs discovers that his mother has died and overdoses, when sex is beaten half to death by a customer and decides to set aside his pride and take the job offered to him, and when violence stands up to his father when his father hits his younger sibling. The restored equilibrium or new equilibrium doesn't actually occur in my film, but is rather hinted at, as drugs survives his overdose, and in the hospital they reaffirm their friendship and discuss how they're looking forward to a brighter future. My characters, I didn't follow Prop's character theory because I didn't feel like a wide variety of complex characters was what I was going for. I was going for 3 complex characters. They all fall into the hero category and I felt that was appropriate. Some of their opposite characters fall into the villain category, but like I said, I wanted to focus on their personal struggles and complications, not their opposing factors with dispatches, helpers, princesses, and so forth. My characters have been inspired by several works that I've seen. Sex was based off the narrator, Sex's appearance is based off the narrator from Fight Club, as he's a young man who also hates his job. His occupation being a sex worker, and his appearance will always be tired as he works nights, generally quite depressive, and he'll be shy and nervous around older people, as they're the people that tend to abuse him the most. Drugs, however, being wealthy, will always look clean but not tidy. He doesn't care about himself or his own appearance, but has the money to always be wearing nice clothes and has a secure place so he's never covered in filth. He just doesn't care about himself. He'll always have an absent-minded look into his eye, as usually in every single scene he'll be on drugs. Violence is not based off Brad Pitt in this picture, but rather all the men here represent what he would look like. He has an office job, which further builds to his anger as he doesn't have a job that he can physically express himself in. And his family are his father and his younger sibling. Oh, he will have constantly bloody knuckles to represent how he's always getting into fights, which will heal as the film goes on and he stops his fighting. For auditions, I put up posters around the college and had emails with the people who were auditioning to bring them in. While I don't have time to show you these and they're at risk of crashing my pitch, I decided to give the role of Drugs' girlfriend to Sophie Print, as the moment she began her audition, she went at it with speed and confidence and an acting ability I didn't see in many of the others. Whenever I told her to do something, she was straight off the mark doing it and was very easy to adapt to whatever I wanted. I'm giving the role of Sex to Joe Gator, even though it's not what he applied to, as he came at me with a script, which none of the others did. Very few of the others did, showing his preparation for the role, which I appreciated. And he presented his script in a variety of different ways: angry, sad, happy, all different kinds of emotions, and that variety I quite liked, as Sex tends to be a quite complex and unstable character. Did I just skip past one? I think I did. That's not done. There we go. My storyboards were not done by myself, but were commissioned by an art student local to Henley College, providing experience for them and storyboards for me. The locations I'll be using will help with my genre. Under a Bridge is dramatic, it's out the way, it will represent isolation, and it's where Sex has a mental breakdown. This park, full of nature, contrasts where drugs will be in it, as drugs constantly fills his body with harmful chemicals. This hospital again will relate to drugs, as it's clean and orderly, whereas the rest of his life is filled not necessarily with physical filth, but filth within his body, and is not orderly in himself, as he doesn't care. The sounds of music I'll be using sounds clear, sharp and sudden to grab the audience's attention and make sure nothing is left too vague. And my music will be emotionally manipulative. When I want you to cry, I'm going to play something sad. That just fits in with my genre and how sound is used in drama. The target audience, I decided would relate to me. I'm a young man, so 18 to 25 is what I felt. And people in my target audience had, the reason I thought this fit people in my target audience was people have seen all kinds of productions before. They've seen films about breakups, about sex, about drugs, about violence, but I don't think they've seen many productions, especially from this college, where those elements are put together and presented to you. In summary, on how I'm going to create this production, I'm going to use my colour themes, my realism in a unique blend to both be a heightened realism and realistic, so you don't disbelieve what's happening on screen. Locations and props that have symbolic value to the narrative, and a variety of characters presenting different issues so that everyone has at least something they can relate to, even though they're presented in an extreme manner. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I like the idea, Paris. I'm just a little bit confused at the names that you have. Is the sex, drugs and violence, are they named that in the actual production?
Sorry, I did forget to mention that, my bad. So sex, drugs and violence are what I'm going to be referring to them in the script, in auditions, because it's easy. You'll always remember that sex is sex. He's the male prostitute.
Right.
You link it in your head.
Yeah.
But no, when I film the actual production, I'll probably just use the actor's name for ease of use, as I find people tend to look like their names. So it won't raise any questions or sound unnatural when other people say it to them. Yes?
You spoke about your test shoots and how you came across some difficulty with them. How are you going to resolve them? What is it you're going to do in future to make them work?
I'm going to show them to the staff at my course and consult on what went wrong and what I want from them, and see what advice they give to me, and then act on that with further test sheets. Yes?
You say that you're going to film in the hospital. Now you showed the hospital there. Are you actually going to film in it? Or?
Yeah, I filmed in there before for my short film Violence,
Yeah.
so they already know me,
Okay.
and hopefully they won't raise many more questions than they did last time.
Okay.